content presented is a lie, and the mainstream media always tells the truth. COVID is true, and you should be vegan. Everything that Paul and say isn't real. All of it is fake. Do not use these words against them because they really love being natural and all of the fat positivity movement. Also, Gymshark is the best company on the planet. Please do not take this program seriously and get your booster injection as soon as possible. Fitness advice from an obese person is completely factual. Only lift once a week for 10 minutes, otherwise you're being fat phobic. Viewer discretion is advised. Over here, Morgan.
I did my wheelchair routine.
Yep. Gotta prep. You gotta get ready.
I know. Wheelchair Olympia is only, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months away.
Isn't it like October? Is that
November?
Is it that close already?
We're in month number 2. We're in month number 2, and November is month number 10, 11, something like that.
No, October is. I think it's taking place in October.
Okay,
beginning of October. So we're 8 months. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Early predictions? Whatever. No, I'm kidding.
Let's guess. C-Bum did say that he was going to retire by 30. That's what he said. He's 28
is he
now.
28? Yeah, 28.
Yeah, so I think he's got probably like maybe 2 more Olympias in him before he probably called it quits. Which, again, I'm still very surprised. I thought he would have retired.
Especially
by now,
after his hair
maybe
loss.
one more. Yeah, I mean...
Well, no, sorry, not his hair loss. His hair loss procedure. I feel like if he was going to do the procedure, that was showing that he's focusing on getting out of the game and like maybe like take more of like the like the Brian Shaw approach, where like you now run events and you're coordinating everything and like have like because obviously he can't leave the field. Like he's going to be involved.
You know, he has part ownership of Raw supplements.
Yeah, but at these major events, if he doesn't show, that's going to hurt the sport. Like there has to be some kind of a panel or photo op or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have a booth and all that. You know, like he'll make an appearance, especially at like the Olympia, maybe the Arnold each year. Especially once he's done competing, you know, he can go to both, like no problem.
And so that's my point. Yeah. Guest poses and has like a regular physique, but guest poses.
I mean, that's what happens, you know. A lot of these retired bodybuilders will guest pose and shit, or they'll guest pose like up until about a few years after they're done retiring, and then they'll call it a quits and just be like, "Look, I'm just gonna be a voice," you know, like Ray Lewis, kind of, I guess.
Would I still compete? No, but would I guest pose?
No,
yes,
for sure. But yeah, before we started recording, we were talking about Alex Jones and how like, yeah, he like
that compilation video of him.
Yeah, it's a good one. Or like all the breaths, all the inhales, you know. But there's the biggest thing that people were making fun of him for were about they're turning the frickin' frogs gay. But come to find out, there actually was like a study done by the CIA or something to see if they actually could like manipulate people's homosexual or like sexuality, and they're testing it on frogs, and they were actually trying to turn frogs gay.
You know, there was a period of time when there was a on scale with nuclear bomb in development for exactly that, turning an entire like 30,000 people area gay. It's been declassified since then, but it's an actual point? Like atomic bomb drop, and then they're all gay.
The only guess that I have is like maybe population control. Maybe
it's something about the hormonal like changes and how it'll affect basically how the country operates. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I mean, if they're like, oh, gay people are pansies, we're gonna make them all fucking pansies. They're not gonna want to fight us anymore.
See, that's tough. That's a tough take, because there are some badass gay people.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was like the bomb was going to turn everybody trans, then we got a problem. That's a problem. But turn people gay, I don't think so. You know, there's plenty of guys in the military who are gay.
Yeah,
I mean, just look at the Navy. They're all gay. But figured based off the title of today's episode, we would talk about Dorian Yates, the man, the myth.
See,
not really
I
myth,
can't
but
see
the legend.
Obviously, we haven't put the title up yet, but at the top of my screen it just says Hall of Gains and Hypertrophy Podcast Studio. So I was like, oh, there's the title.
Yep, that's exactly what the title is.
It's the same title each week.
It's our next influencer review. I want to say it's number 5,
Yeah.
I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah, but Dorian Yates, he's the original mass monster. He was the one who brought mass, like real, true, insane mass to the Olympia competition, and really just bodybuilding in general. He competed primarily in the 90s. He had a smattering of other shows prior to that. So like he had like the British champion, stuff like that. And then the Night of Champions in 1990, or the 1991 Night of Champions, and then he went on to the Mr. Olympia. What's crazy is that his first Olympia was the 91 Olympia, and then he competed until the 97 Olympia. So 91, 92, 93, 94, so it was 4, 5, 6, 7 Olympias, and he got second in the 91 Olympia. Every Olympia after that, he got first.
Yeah.
And then he just stopped. Right after the 97 Olympia, he was done competing entirely.
I feel like if you have enough like understanding of like your longevity, like not survival wise, but in the sport wise, you have to pick a moment when you're on top to leave. Like it's just the smart decision.
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, but like there's a lot of guys out there, like Ronnie Coleman's one of them, where like he didn't want to stop swinging until he had to, you know, like until he was dethroned, he was going to keep going until he was dethroned.
I get that. Yeah.
I get both sides of it. Like you want to call it when you're at the top, but also like you don't know if you are at like the peak, you know, you don't know if you can keep winning or not. So if you keep going until you lose, then you know, okay, it's probably done now. But if you stop when you're winning, you might be like, well, what if? A lot of what ifs. But that's, you know, Dorian, I think the biggest thing for him was just coming from like just the intensity of his training and his whole like mindset of like, oh, I'm locking myself in, not really locking himself, but like he's like, oh, like he always had he always felt that, you know, being in England with all the snow and stuff like that, it made him tougher than all the guys lifting on Venice Beach and in the sun and stuff like that. I get where he's coming from, but it doesn't just like, obviously whatever he was doing was working. I don't necessarily think that a lot of the examples he uses are good examples of what he's talking about. Like, you know, you both of us are from Massachusetts, so we know what it's like to have a lot of snow and then a lot of cold, and you know, and when it is snowing out, especially when I lived like 3-4 minutes from the gym back in Templeton, you know, it was like you could really tell who was there because they like were driven for it. There's only a couple people in the gym, and when it would be snowing like 12 inches outside, like barely even able to get there. But I still went, but it doesn't mean that I deserve it more than somebody else. It just is harder to get there. That's all that really means. Like he was like, oh, I walked an hour and a half in the snow to go train for 40 minutes. And I'm like, that doesn't really, it's kind of counterintuitive because you're burning all those calories getting there. You probably ate before you left is my guess. So like your food is like way beyond digested or just about to be done digesting at that point. And you're just getting to the gym. And then you're going to walk another hour and a half back. And that's a super long ass time to not eat. Like a 5-6 hour window.
The craziest warm up known to man. I take an hour and a half in my warm up.
Yeah, my warm up was an hour and a half ruck through the snow in snowshoes. That's just to warm up my legs for arm day.
Yeah. I do handstand walks all the way there.
Yeah, exactly. With some gloves on. No gloves on.
No gloves. No shirt either.
Just frostbite. So you don't feel it anymore. You just grip anything you want. No more painful calluses.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dorian, I don't know, he just always had this like, oh, I you know, worked harder for it than anybody else because, you know, I you know, was living in the snow and I had to trek through it and do all this, and the intensity, and the gym I was in was just a piece of shit gym with all this rust, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know.
I'll say it doesn't like take. I don't think it makes someone more deserving, but for the toughness factor, it certainly absolutely shines light to it. Like
I
people who
mean,
can handle, you know, adverse weather and still be able to train with, you know, just whatever's available and not having, you know, like obviously this we're talking about the 80s, 90s, and even the 70s for training, so it's not like he's um able to have like modern like today like if so many like the science-based workouts where you're hitting like certain machines and stuff like that. It's not like there's a discrepancy between that and a gym that doesn't have that, but it's more so like, you know, me and you talk about all the time, like it feels way better to lift walking out with iron or like rust stains on your hand than it does to walk out of a gym without it, you know?
yeah. I mean, I guess like the way I see it is, um, it probably just it was less about the equipment and it's more just like about the atmosphere and like where he put himself mentally to train there, and the intensity that he was in. Like the guy who was spotting him, I forget the guy's name. He forget, jeez. I don't remember exactly, but that was the guy. The yelling during Dorian Yates training videos. That's from his spotter, and like that's such an iconic like voice to hear at this point.
Yeah.
And like that, I think is part of it too. You know, like I think that the people he surrounded himself with and the atmosphere he put himself in were a big proponent to the way he looked at bodybuilding in general and his overall just life. But a lot of the equipment that he was using, believe it or not, is actually at Vanarchy. Not the exact equipment, but the same, you know, models and all that. The pullover machine, for instance, is one of like his. I believe I heard at one point that it was one of his favorite machines to use was the pullover machine for his back, and the same pullover machine at Vanarchy is the pullover machine that he used. You know,
well, that's the one. Like, if you look up a Dorian Yates video, that one's absolutely thrown in the compilation. Not like a signature machine, but definitely a huge piece of it.
Yeah. You see a lot of like a lot of back stuff from Dorian because that's really what set him apart was his insane fucking back. And I think like the hammer strength pull down, I want to say, and then the pullover from was it Paramount? I forget what brand it is. Those are like the key ones that really like I think he utilized to bring him up there.
Yeah,
but it's I don't know. I'd like to train at the gym that he trained at. It's called Temple Gym. I guess in 1987 he bought it. It's called Temple Gym and it's on Temple Street in Birmingham. And then in 2006 he franchised 4 additional locations. 3 are in the UK. But as of 2020, only the Birmingham gym is still in operation.
Yeah.
So the other, I guess, the other 4 that he franchised are no longer in business. But that happens with gyms. It might not be that those gyms went under. It might be that those gyms decided to change names, stuff like that, decided to stop franchising because, you know, franchising, I mean, for me, it wouldn't make any sense to franchise from a company that only has 1 location. You know, it's like, it wouldn't really make any sense. Like, it would have been smarter for him to, I mean, in my opinion, it would have been smarter for him to open up multiple locations and not franchise them. Just have actual multiple locations. Like Gold's gym is a franchise, there's so many of them. Same with Powerhouse. There's not a ton of powerhouses, but a lot of these companies are franchises. You know, there's LA Fitness and Planet Fitness is a franchise. Like most popular gyms are franchises for a reason. You know, it just makes a lot more sense for the business model of the parent company to have these, franchises. And Gold's Gym is a good example of that. But when you purchase into the franchise, you know, you get marketing, you get support, you get access to, I think like they're like equipment, like people, cause like they build up relationships with like, different equipment manufacturers and stuff like that. So you get access to like certain discounts, stuff like that is what you get access to. But as a franchise, you're still kind of answering to someone. Granted, if you do become a huge franchise, like the Goals Near Me is run by the same guy who runs the team that I'm on, Mike, and he owns like 8 or 9 Gold's gyms, and I think that's the most out of all Gold's gyms in the US or in like the world, like most amount franchise to one person. So I think that he has a bigger say in like the way his business is run versus somebody who just has one Gold's gym, you know. But yeah, so to get back to Yates, I think that he would have been in a better place to open up multiple gyms rather than just have franchises out. But ever since his competition days, I mean, he's been doing random stuff here and there. He let me see. His career ended
big thing.
I
was going to say a big thing for him was he talked about staying out of the public eye once he retired. Like it was very, very big focus. Not like, like obviously Ronnie can't move all that well anymore, but he's still like heavily involved in the public. He goes out and does things, does shoots with people. Like Dorian was kind of like the opposite. Like I'm retiring and disappearing.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Ronnie is kind of the face also of his supplement brand.
That's true.
So like there is that too. And Dorian has, I believe, like some stuff like part ownership in some companies. I think he also owns DY Nutrition, owned and endorsed by Yates. Let me see if it's still around. I don't typically buy nutrition supplements from a company just because. Yeah, they're still around. DY Nutrition. Yeah, so he does have that. Okay, I guess they don't have any pre-workout anymore. Never mind. Everything I click, it says it's empty. So, yeah, they don't have anything. Never mind. I don't see. Like that's what's weird. I don't get why you're gonna put all this effort into something and then just let it die. Like he found it in 2011.
Oh, you can buy Yates bar. This is Dorian Yates protein bars. It's on his website. If you just go through all the different things.
What? Okay, let me see.
Go into proteins and then under.
Okay, so if you click all the products, there is some stuff. It's like apparel, from the Shadow book, and like some of them are signed. And you can buy some Yates bars, I guess. But it's not like, I think they're just waiting to sell everything out until, because like you check anything else and they're all gone.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a couple shirts are sold out. But yeah, he did have that whole mindset even during his Olympia days. Like he didn't want to show anybody his physique or anything like that. He just would show up and just show it. Like that's when he would show it. Is when he comes to actually compete.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think
you can buy Dorian Yates joint support tablets.
Yeah, I did see that. 90 tablets for $28 is not bad. But there's like basically nothing in it. Glucosamine, sulfate, pretty much it, of which glucosamine is 600 milligrams. Yeah, it's not really much going on there. Vitamin D3. But yeah, so he did have some investments throughout his, retired career, but it does say, at least on Wikipedia, that a large reason why he retired was because of acute injuries, including torn biceps and triceps. And his triceps tore 3 weeks prior to his final contest in '97 Olympia. He still won in spite of the injury. And but that is the year that a lot of people that think that Nasser El Sanbadi should have gotten the win.
The 91, you said?
Yeah, no, 97. The 97 Olympia was the year that Nasser Al-Somebody should have won, is what a lot of people say. Which, knowing what we know now, I wish he did win, Nasser, because, you know, he didn't survive that much longer. So he would have gotten at least an Olympia under his belt, you know, instead of getting second. I don't think he ever won an Olympia, or even, I think second was his best placing. So I think that would have been really good for him to.
I mean, second place at Olympia is still, I mean,
for sure, like
unbelievable feat. Yeah,
I mean, stepping on the Olympia stage in general is an insane feat, you know.
Absolutely.
So, like, there's no discrediting his second place, but I think that if it was controversial, like it's saying it is, then Nasser, you know, in retrospective thoughts, like we should have given it to Nasser Al-Somebody so that he could have, you know, called it a day with the Olympia under his belt, you know?
Yeah.
But it says that he's the last Mr. Olympia to retire as Mr. Olympia so far. So, like, everybody else is retired after they've lost the Mr. Olympia title.
C1 will be the next.
Possibly. If he wins these next two and he retires when he says he's going to, then he'll be in the most recent one. But it says from his competitions or so, he partnered with Kerry Kayes to form a supplement company called CNP Professional, who had like a Dorian Yates product line. So kind of like like kind of like a pro line, a pro supplement line, which they'll do. You know, it's like before CBum bought into Raw, I want to say that they were starting to invest in like a CBum line of supplements.
Yeah, it's kind of like when an athlete gets like a specialty shoe or something like that. And bodybuilding, exactly. Same thing. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess he partnered with Kerry Kayes, which is, let's see who Kerry Kayes is. Not really much about them. They're British bodybuilding champion and show promoter. So I guess Kerry Kayes is just like a showrunner, stuff like that. He left the company 8 years later in 2006 to form his own company. Dorian Yates Ultimate Formulas offers a line of protein and weight gain supplements. He started a second company in 2010 called EU Peptides, which sells peptide hormones and other hormones supplements. But then he left EU Peptides in 2012. 2011, he found DY Nutrition, which is basically no longer around, really. So he's had some various, business excursions, stuff like that. But the thing that he's known for now is, he lives in Spain and all that, and his wife Gal Ferreira, she's been competing professionally since 2007, I think. They met at the 2008 Arnold Classic, but they live in Spain now, and basically since then, he has been very open about his, cannabis usage during bodybuilding, how that affected him. And then at the same time, he's a huge proponent now of psychedelic drugs, including ayahuasca. He's huge around that, Jeez. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast and was talking about his ayahuasca usage and how he runs retreats and stuff in Peru for ayahuasca, which is, I want to say, legal down there. So basically you show up and instead of smoking ayahuasca, I want to say you drink it and you end up tripping for 8 hours.
Yeah, that's
super long trip.
The people who do their journeys to find themselves, it's always a drinking version. And then the one that we have a lot of not documentation, but just anecdotal data that's similar to that is the Aaron Rodgers one, where he locked himself in a room for 3 days, and it was a completely pitch black room, and he did that. So those kind of retreats are kind of, it's a similar thing.
Yeah. And he's also huge on yoga and meditation and shit now. So he went from this hardcore bodybuilding, all about how he looked, very it's all vain, that's just part of bodybuilding. It's all about how you look. But then you went from that rusty training in a dungeon gym to being like a psychedelic hippie, basically. Like it was like a complete 180, you know, like that's wild. But I mean, maybe he had all this pent up shit going on, you know, and he just decided.
And that's the case with a lot of us too. Like, I mean, a lot of people who train the way that bodybuilders train, they have like that dark section of their mind that like gets them through those like super tedious and like drawn out workouts where like regular people would have like, you know, end up going home, but other people have the goal in mind and they know they have to train for it and are just going to push through it. So you have to like get to like the dark recesses of your mind, and you know, people can struggle with that. So
yeah, he had to dig deep to get all the good stuff out. But I just like, for me, when I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with him, and I just didn't really like a lot of his attitude towards things. Like it was always like almost, I mean, I have all the respect to him in what he's earned and accomplished and all that. Like, don't get me wrong, but like a lot of what he has to say just comes off very pretentious. Like it's like I'm better than other people. It's kind of like the way he talks. And he's like, yeah, this is how it was, and like nobody could have beaten me. I was the hardest worker, and like you know, he's like, I think that was the best bodybuilder of all time, and nobody's ever going to beat my physique and stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know. I just don't really like the way that he says all that. Like look at Ronnie Coleman, just like one of the most humble people in the world. And Jay Cutler had a video that went viral recently talking about Ronnie and how like they went out to a club once and Ronnie would just sit there on like the wall and just kind of like, you know, like bob his head to the music and just kind of watching people. And people were freaking out at Ronnie's size, and he just didn't really pay any attention to it. You know, that's just who he was. He was just kind of there just to watch people have fun. You know, he didn't want to get in the way of anybody. He was kind of a quiet guy when he was at the club with Jay. And, you know, I mean, even now, like he makes the most of what he's got, you know, even though he's had all these injuries and bad surgeries and stuff like that, he still makes the most of it. And still, you know, smiles through it, at least from what we see. You know, we don't know him in the behind the scenes, but at least from what he shows the public, like he's always smiling, really. But like with Dorian, it's like nothing. It doesn't seem like anything's ever good enough to him. Like it's always somehow less. You know, it's less than, which I just don't really like that approach to life. I think that you should appreciate those around you, and even your competition. You should appreciate your competition. You know, even if you are beating them, like still like at least give them the credit, especially when you have a controversial one where a lot of people think that you should have gotten second. Like, don't be like, oh, I have the best physique of all time. It's like, arguably you didn't, because Nasser actually should have beaten you.
And that's a good point too, because I mean, at the Olympia stage, it's obviously at the highest extent, but at any level, the people that, you know, you're competing with or that you train with are the ones that basically strive you to be better, because like you always have to base yourself off of something, you know, like if you're training and the people around you aren't either of better physiques than you or training harder than you, then you have little to no incentive to push through that barrier, you know?
I mean, that was one of C-Bum's issues that he said after winning the Olympia. He's like, well, now what?
Yeah.
He's at the top of the hill. You know what I mean? Like, what is he striving for? It's like, there's like that saying, it's, the wolf climbing the hill is always hungrier than the wolf at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, you know, you got to use, you know, your own form of motivation in order to keep pushing yourself, because you're the best. You know, there's no beating you. Like nobody could have possibly beaten you that year. Like talking about like C-Bum or anybody who wins Olympia being like the best competition of the year. So for C-Bum, it was having to beat his previous look. He's like, I have to beat myself every single year. I have to look better every year. Previous year, 2023 was the only year I would argue probably didn't look that much better, if at all, than the 2022 Olympia. I think 2020, but also keep in mind, I think that at least in that case, it could have also have been that the competition was a lot fiercer as well, so he didn't stick out as much as he did. as the 2022. Like the 2022 Olympia, it was like fucking just hats off, like just throwing the towel.
Well,
like,
yeah, he walked
we're
out.
Done.
Everybody knew. Yeah.
Yeah, it was absurd. But like 2023, it's like, okay, Ramon's getting pretty close. He's not far behind now, you know, and
Urs is always right around the corner. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then like for Dorian,
Breon's kind of hanging out.
Yeah, he's all over the place, but yeah, but like with Dorian, he called it after, he never lost. Like after his 92 Olympia, he never lost a show. But he was also, you when you're at that level, you got to be very meticulous. So like CBum could say, oh, since 2019, I haven't lost a show. So for like Dorian competing for 5 years, 6 years, if you include 92, he was competing for that long and he never lost. But for like CBum, you could say the same thing, but he's only competing in one show a year and winning that one show each year. So if you're very meticulous about what show you're picking and you win each one, then you could theoretically be undefeated for a long time, but you have to dial it in and nail it at that very particular show that you pick. So like it's like tough for like guys who are trying to get to the Olympia level, because you have to hit now, especially you have to hit most likely multiple shows to get that overall card for the Olympia qualification, so that's going to result in most likely some losses. You're not going to come in, especially if you're doing a bunch of shows back to back, or like within a couple of weeks of each other. Like there's some of them you're going to lose, guaranteed. So you're not going to have an undefeated run.
Train for so long and so hard with a coach that you literally are Olympia stage, and then step on your amateur stage for the first time and just go on a winning streak all the way to the top.
Yeah, you get to the Olympia level of bodybuilding. Like you do like your own behind the scenes shows and stuff, so that you can like prep yourself to get to that stage, and then you're just like Olympia caliber at like an amateur show. You show up and everybody's just like, I'm just going home, dude. I'm not even going to step out there. Are you shitting me?
That one like 19-year-old kid is like, I can beat him.
Yeah, exactly. There's always teen kids at every show that think they can compete in men's open and
the
win.
Broccoli head who's standing at like 5'10", 160 pounds.
Yeah, I'm going to compete in men's open and teen. Dude, if you can compete in teen, there's a reason teen exists and doesn't exist in open. There's a reason you don't have the ability to be at men's open level yet. The youngest like professional bodybuilders are all men's physique, and they're like the end of 19. Like they're like right at like just about 20, which is like your body's starting to like really mature at that point. So it's like really just like heavy gear usage and training from like 14, and then just like the perfect scenario of winning an amateur show and then somehow winning or getting top 2 in a national show. Like that's like all that you need there, right? So, that's how like these younger guys get in there. But then a lot of the time, the younger guys don't really do anything with it, and it's just like I don't know. Like you sent that video the other day, the guy with the 6-month transformation, and it's like, oh, he just got to learn. You just got to grow. Yeah, you just got to get older. You got to mature.
Yeah, for reference, I sent Paul a video, and it was like you said, 6 months transformation, and the physique had not changed. The only thing that had changed was, like you pointed out, the lighting, and he had a pump in the second video, and it wasn't even like a big difference. Like,
I mean, there might have been some changes, like he may have a bit better body composition or something, maybe a tad bit more muscle, a tad bit less fat. But like ultimately, if somebody was like, yeah, here's like without a pump and here's with a pump, I'd have been like, oh, okay, yeah. Like I would have believed that, but he said it's a 6-month transformation. So I'm just like, oh man, I just feel bad, because I was in a similar place too. Like you just learn like what like actual progress looks like and what it feels like and what you need to do for it. And that kid just hasn't done it yet,
Yeah.
So he'll learn and he'll look back and he'll cringe at himself, but that's just because, he'll grow as a person. And that's why we cringe at stuff like that now too, is because, we grew as people where we were like that, like every guy who goes to the gym was like that. It's like, oh dude, I look fucking sick. Like I've been putting in some serious work. I look sick. But then it's like,
I like looking back.
Like, what the fuck was I talking about?
I like looking back at my the PF days in particular, because I remember thinking I looked like a badass, where I had, I don't think I was wearing Noble yet, but I was wearing whatever bright shoe I had, with sweatpants, and then I have these, like, they're not stringers, but it's Nike tank tops, so they're like
Yeah.
athletic fit tank tops. And looking at pictures then, or from then, I mean, I was not really filling out the frame, but I remember feeling so confident wearing them. And then I'd wear some little headband, or the thick headbands I like to wear, and my hair is like below my shoulder, and I just look so dorky and like a girl. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know what photos you're talking about.
And now I look at myself now, and I'm, wearing stringers, have a regular haircut, and even without a pump, like, it's just monumental difference. But yeah, that took 3 years of hard training. Like, it's not like this guy posted a 6 month, and it is, don't get me wrong, it is possible to have a transformation that's, monumental in 6 months. Like, a lot of people, like, if they just start training and they have that, like, godly genetics, it just kind of like snaps for them. Yeah. But for a lot of people, it's going to be this multi-year, and then you can look back at it.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you guys were in Planet Fitness, I was just like, man, y'all ain't got no idea yet.
I'm like, you were waiting for our first big breakup for us to go into the depressive state, and then
not even. I was just like, man, y'all just need another gym, and once you do, you'd be like, what the hell was I doing? Like that, just that alone is a transformation, going from, like a beginner gym like Planet Fitness or something, or like a 24-hour fitness or something, and then going to something that's a bit more serious. Like that alone is a transformation, and it changes you. And I was just like, man, I just knew, like, once that came up, that's what was going to happen. And it did.
And that's the thing. Up. Like, I thought I was making good gains. Like, the weight I could move in the workouts would, move up a little bit. But then once I got to Empire, it was like my physique started changing, and then my weight really started changing. But now that I'm in the underground sector with Van, like, it's even more intense. So yeah, the gym makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. The atmosphere too changes a lot, and the equipment overall is just a lot better. Like Planet Fitness is, regardless of the atmosphere, let's just ignore that. The equipment itself is just lackluster at best. It's like what you'd have if you had a garage gym, like one Smith machine, like a cable machine, no benches, but you have like, you could like lay on the floor instead, shit like that. It's like, it is dumbbells only up to 70 pounds or whatever. Like it's like, it just doesn't promote more than beginners, anything past beginner. If you start approaching intermediate, you'll grow out of it pretty quick. But again, that's just part of growing. And I look back a lot of my photos, and I'm just like, what the hell am I talking about? Like, oh, it's so cringe. It's so fucking cringe. I used to train in jeans a lot just because I was but I mean, granted, I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. So I didn't even want to spend the energy to like change. I just would like throw on a stringer and just like get a pump and wear jeans. But it was like, I don't know. It just was not a good period out. It was like, if I could go back and tell myself something, it would be, dude, fucking stop training. Like, you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night at best. You're working way too much. You got school on top of it. And like, you're losing sleep to cook food. I'm like, I just tell myself, like, look, you're literally not even making any difference. You're spending all this time and effort doing this, and you're not even getting the sleep necessary to recover, let alone everything else.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have told myself. But that's just part of growing. And, I mean, in Dorian's world, I mean, I don't know where the hell Dorian came from, because in 89, I think it was 89, he started competing. Then boom, 92, he won the Olympia, or second in the Olympia. 93, he won. So I don't know where the hell he came from. It's like, that's part of like Dorian too, is like, he just came out of nowhere, brought this crazy fucking mass that like nobody's seen before. But then there's also like this stupid bullshit that he says, like, he's like, oh, like, it says right here, it references exactly what he's talking about. So he's kind of part-ish of like the Holocaust deniers. There's a video that There's a video that Dave Palumbo posted on his YouTube channel 5 years ago, and it says controversial viewpoints. And one of his controversial viewpoints is that the death toll of the Holocaust is over-exaggerated, as there have been two forensic studies, in quotations, prove that no gas was ever used in Auschwitz. And it's like,
well,
what?
Even if it wasn't used in Auschwitz, that's not saying it wasn't used in like Buchenwald or any of the other concentration camps.
Yeah, and even then, like, it wasn't just the gas that was killing people. It was starvation, thirst, like literally freezing to death. Yeah, like it was like there's so many different like the shit people were doing in the Holocaust that people don't talk about, like what what was happening in concentration camps, and even in the Japanese concentration camps with the American POWs. Like, it is fucked. Like, the gas is like the least disturbing one. If you read like true World War, like, I know this is kind of a tangent here, but like, this is what I hate about like Holocaust deniers and shit. You read like firsthand accounts of what, you know, these Holocaust survivors were talking about, especially where they still have the fucking numbers on their arms. They'd be like, they were using babies for skeet shooting. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, they would say pull and just throw a baby in the air. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, how does that happen? You know? Like, originally, I had never, you know, I think one thing that would be kind of interesting is to read Mein Kampf. Like, what does Hitler actually say in there that convinced all these people that these people were bad? You know, like, what was it that he said?
It's very nationalist based. So it's like if we read like a piece of material that's like, take like the most, you know, gung-ho American you can think of, and then amplify that by like 10. That's kind of what it is. And it
Gotcha.
A lot of historical side of things, like for like we're talking like early empires. That's a lot of stuff was rooted in there. And for the skeet shooting stuff, that's one thing. But I actually it's funny you bring this up because my students just learned about this because we just read Night, and I just put on a documentary on Friday where it talks about to conserve ammo, these extermination groups would just grab a baby and smash it against a tree instead of shooting it. So,
like, how do you just get the most psychopathic, sociopathic people to, like, how does that happen? Like, how do you go from, like, I mean, granted, they also started World War I and shit too, but, like, how do you go from, like, relative norm to, like, 5 years later, like, soldiers are just, like, mutilating babies? Like, how do you, what's point A to point B? Like, how does that happen? You know? Like, it's not like you're, like, converting normal people to become, like psychopaths.
Well, it's trend rage.
Yeah, that's all it is. They were just dosing everybody up on a shit on a tren. A grab a tren each week.
The Holocaust deniers never want to do blood work, huh?
Ooh, steroid usage, perhaps. Even though testosterone wasn't invented for like 10 years, artificial testosterone.
Your field kit has a throwaway razor, a wire toothbrush, and a vial of test.
Yeah, and one needle.
Yeah.
Probably already dirty, a little bent. But he has a bunch of these like weird fucking ideas. Like his whole thing about like ayahuasca and whatnot, and how like that's life changing and stuff. And he says that like supposedly cannabis has anti-cancer properties and all this shit. Like, it's just a lot of it's just kind of like out of left field. It just doesn't really make any sense. So I don't know. It's like it. Like he also said regarding his use of PEDs, he said the documentary Super Size Me, you know, where the guy eats 3 McDonald's meals a day, is more harmful for the metabolism than his 12 years of regular steroid use. My fucking ass. I mean, maybe the metabolism particularly, but let's talk about the rest of the body.
Yeah.
It might have been more damaging for his metabolism at the time, but then he could still recover from it. He had all those meals, and he could then eat healthy and exercise and get back to where he was. But that was part of it, was that could you live off McDonald's while doing no exercise and only eating just McDonald's? So he became he gained a lot of fat, got really unhealthy, but it was for a reason, But then to say 12 years of, he said regular steroid use. You mean super fucking heavy steroid use?
I was going to say there's no such thing as regular steroid use, unless you're talking like doctor prescribed HRT.
I mean, you could say regular if it wasn't abnormal amount. If it was pretty standard for what a lot of guys use, then you could say it's a regular amount.
Insert the video of Rich Piana saying, I was taking an IU of HG every half hour.
Yeah, no, that's not a regular amount. But it's if somebody was 400 milligrams of test on cycle, I'd be like, all right, that's a pretty standard amount. That's a pretty regular amount of test, Or somebody said 200 or 150 milligrams of tren, and it's on the lower side, but pretty standard. You hear that pretty often. So that's what I think when he says regular steroid use. In my opinion, Dorian must have been on fucking grams of shit. No matter your genetics, to get to that size, you have to be on a lot of shit. And your body can't handle it.
Especially because we know he got to the Olympia stage not being the mass monster that we have come to know him as. It was after that, the 91 or yeah.
No, 92 is when he
not his first
win.
No, 91 he got second. And then even 1990 with United Champions he got second. One of those is the famous quote where the judge told him he wasn't big enough. And that's when we get, the absolute monstrosity that he became. And so that's my point.
He's fucking huge.
He got to that level without being the mass monster. So to then go and take it to another level, you have to be on all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, you have to shock the body somehow. It's not like he didn't change his training to get a ton of fucking size. He had to change something else. But that's what I'm saying. It's just the regular steroid use. No, there's no way.
Yeah,
I don't believe in that regular steroid use. But he's 61. Huh?
Regular steroid use. I sipped on a glass of testosterone.
Oops. Does that make me a woman now? Oopsies. He's 61 now, going to turn 62 in April, so he would have won his first Olympia at 30, just about 30.
Yeah, it's right on 30 because he was born in 62 and he won in 92.
Yeah, 90. Yeah, you were right. So yeah, 92 he won, 91 he lost. So he won when he was 30.
Yeah.
And then stopped competing when he was 35.
96, 97.
Yeah.
So 35.
So when he was 35, yeah. So from 1991 English Grand Prix up until the 1997 Mr. Olympia, he won every single show he competed in, including the Spanish, German, and English Grand Prix that he did in 94, 96, and a few others. But yeah, he just came out of nowhere and just fucking started mutilating.
Yeah.
But yeah, 93 was really where he brought that mass, 93 to 97. But again, it's part of that his training style that resulted in those injuries, most likely. When you train with really, really high intensity, you're asking to get injured. Look at Ronnie. A lot of his injuries were because of his really high intensity training.
Yeah.
And
plenty of people, not to say that anybody has ever really achieved Ronnie's look, but plenty of people have gotten to Olympia caliber not doing the 800-pound squat.
Yeah, Jay Cutler was one of them. I think he only did like 500 something at the most. But like Jay was also like a big proponent of like low weight. Like he was talking about the other day, a lot of volume, and he was talking about the other day like when he was training for the Olympia each year, he never really got above 2 plates on bench. He's like, I almost never touched 225 on bench, like ever. He did it in a video, and he said that's why like that video is that clip was crazy for him, because he'd never done really anything like that when he was training for the Olympia. He'd always go under 225, which really goes to show a lot. You know, it's like you look at the Mr. Olympia competitors, it really says a lot about the people you see in the gym on a regular basis who say like, oh, this is how much I bench, like this is what I do. And it's like, when it comes to bodybuilding, it's not really needed. You know, like Nick Walker is another example. Like he was doing like 110s or something on incline or whatever it was, incline bench. And he's like, this is my top set. Like he was talking about how like I think he just started hitting 110s or something. And he's like, I can barely hit this for this amount of weight or this amount of reps. And he's like, so if you're hitting this and you're not my size, and you're probably doing too much weight or whatever it was, something along those lines. And it does go to show a lot, because these guys, you know, a lot of guys judge, you know, their size based off of how much they can lift. And size doesn't always result, like, yes, it results in more strength in the grand scheme of things, but it's not like you're a power lifter. You know, your muscles are extremely, extremely dense to help support a lot of weight. Your muscles are inflated and very round and very full of like water, basically. So you're not going to be super strong, but you're going to look like you're going to look crazy, you know? And there's this other video. I don't know if you saw it. This fucking guy, I don't know his name. He's like a Spanish guy or something from Florida. He has like these aviators always on in all of his videos, and he talks about like bodybuilding and shit. They're like shorts, right? They're like YouTube shorts. And he's talked about how like bodybuilding is the stupidest sport because you get injured so easily. And he's like, look at these two bodybuilders. Like, he's like, they got injured and they weren't even lifting. He's like, one guy was catching his dog falling off the couch, or his baby or something falling off the couch. This other guy was stepping up to something like a stair, like a tall stair or something, and like tore his quad, where the other guy tore his tricep catching his dog falling off the couch or something. But it's like, yeah, but let's go ahead and dissect what actually happened. Was it the muscle that tore, or was it the tendon that tore? And I almost guarantee you it was the tendon. And you know how it is very easy to tear a tendon, you know?
Yeah.
My mom tore her ACL from a kick when she was in karate. She got really high and was it Taekwondo? I forget what it was, but she got really high up there in belt, and she just did a roundhouse like she normally would just any other day, and just swung it a little weird, and boom, tore her ACL, just popped it. You know, sometimes you just need like the perfect, roadhouse. Sometimes you need like the perfect scenario to tear something. And on top of that, when you are training, you are more prone to injuries. You know that firsthand with your sports that you play. And a lot of time it is tendon based, because especially when you're using gear, your tendons aren't stronger. Your tendons never gain strength. You know, your tendons don't just grow. It's like saying cartilage. Your cartilage just doesn't just like grow. Your bones just don't grow.
My ears. What are you training today? Ears.
Ears. I'm trying to get that cauliflower ear. That's my goal, cauliflower ear.
Hey, where do you pin? My earlobe.
Oh, straight to the bloodstream. It just sits there infected for 10 days.
It pools up, and then I take it out and reinsert.
That way it's acclimated to my body already. My body's taking its own resources in.
If I ever have to get the COVID booster again, I'm gonna have it put in like my ear or something like that.
Can you inject it into one of my hair strands, please? That's the only place that will get it. But yeah, it's your tendons are very, very weak in comparison to your muscles, especially when you're on gear. That's when you're on gear and you talk to anybody who's taking gear, they should tell you to take it easy on the weights. You know, you're gonna feel strong. It's going to feel good, and you're going to want to be able to push more weight, but you need to take it slow because your tendons can't handle it, you know? You can build up resilience in your tendons, but they're not just going to gain strength. You know, they might be able to handle more strain, but they're not going to be able to lift weight, So like these guys who he was making fun of that, were bodybuilders and just tore something trying to catch something. Like trying to catch, like imagine that. Imagine you're sitting there, your dog, your kid or whatever falls off the couch. Now try to catch them with that arm. Like, yeah, your arm's in a weird fucking place.
That's what I was gonna say. Anybody who goes after like the example I could think of from this about 10 years ago of literally the exact same conversation. When someone who's an athlete gets injured doing anything else, that shows that they're human, if anything else. Like that, because that's injuries that regular people get. So, for example, there's in the mid 2010 era, like 2010, 2011, 2013 era, Madison Bumgarner, he was a pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. He was huge into dirt biking. Like he's a I want to say like a southern kid or like a southwestern kid, and that's like, dirt biking is huge, like in the places where you don't have like big cities or anything like that. And he got injured, like pretty messed up, doing some dirt. It wasn't a stunt or anything. It was just, like riding about, and everyone was giving him crap. And I was like, that's an injury that anybody would get. Like, it's sure he's, a great athlete. He is a phenomenal pitcher. That doesn't mean he's not going to get injured doing something that somebody else would get injured for. So that's why I always hate these. If it's a training injury, completely different story. I get those, but it's such a dumb conversation to have.
I mean, when it comes to those, side injuries, like if it was me and like, I was a professional baseball player or something, I would take it more easy in the off season just to prevent injuries. I'd focus a lot more on like eating healthy, enjoying life, like mentally, doing a lot more stretching, focusing more so on my just general health, because when it's the season, even training prior to the season, like you're going hard the whole time, especially baseball. There's so many fucking games a year for each team, so I can get where people are like, why is he risking it in the off season? But also like, you need to live your life,
But my thing is, the conversation is that you can't blame it on the sport, like saying a bodybuilder gets injured for doing that. So that's why I think those are dumb. Like last summer when both my ankles blew up, that was because of sport. That wasn't because of my lifting routine. So I can't say I squatted 3 plates and my ankles just snapped underneath me. No, I was out doing other stuff and it affected my gym use.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like I was saying, you can be more prone to things, from bodybuilding. Like when I was in prep, like I was eating such a little amount of food and doing all the training that I was doing and cardio and all that, like I was really prone to injuries at the time. My body was extremely fragile. My recovery was, it was really good because of the gear usage, but that's the only reason why it was good in the first place. Like it's, you're asking to get hurt when you're in prep, your whole system is very, very like on edge the entire time. So it's very easy to get injured. Or if you're bulking and you're just like really pushing your body to the next level to get on size. I'm sure like Dorian from 92 to 93, like you have to be careful, during those periods because you're putting your body through hell in order to put on size. You're eating a ton of food. Your whole body is just working overtime to do all of that. So you're going to be more prone to injuries. That's just part of it, and it's like pitchers in baseball, their shoulders are way more prone to injuries than anybody else because of the stress that they put on their arms, it's just how it is. It's just how sports work. You're more prone to these injuries when you work, different muscles, tendons, ligaments, whatever. But to be like, oh, it's a stupid sport because you're more prone to injuries, it's like then you could argue that every sport is stupid because you're more prone to injuries. Like there's sports that like I wouldn't say you're more like motorsport, for instance, right? Like you're not, they're kind of training for certain things, but like you're not really prone to injuries outside of motorsport more so than anybody else. But the sport is inherently dangerous itself, so you're asking to get hurt. But anything that's physically demanding, you're asking for more you're not asking, but like you're more prone to injuries. So it's much easier for you to get more easily injured than anybody else. So you got to be careful of that shit. And that's what happened with Dorian Yates. You know, he had a bicep and a tricep tear, and that's basically what kind of ended his Olympia career. You know, it's like he ended up winning somehow the 97 Olympia. There's a few, I think C-Bum had a bicep tear going into either last year, 2022 or whatever it was. So I mean, these things happen and they do hinder you quite a bit. But sometimes like your tear could be so bad that there's just no recovering from it. And I think that's probably what happened with the 97 Olympia. He tore his tricep. He somehow won because he did everything that he needed to do. And his triceps were where they're supposed to be besides the tendon tear. But after that, like he probably, like especially when you do a full tear, you have to get surgery. And then after that, the muscle's never going to look the same. Yep. You know, it'll always be messed up, especially when you tear a quad or something like that. Like your quad's fucked the rest of your life if you tear a quad. So, you know, these tears will end your career. So especially the longer you compete in bodybuilding, the longer you're training, you should be doing more movements that are more agreeable with your physique. You know, it's more agreeable with your body. You know, like that's why I think that after like beginner to intermediate, you should probably ditch preacher girls with a bar or dumbbells like right away. Like that's one of the first ones I think everybody should ditch because it is so easy to tear a bicep on preacher curls, or like doing like single arm overhead tricep extensions. Like this shit, you're so prone to a tricep tear because you're just stretching this tendon right here so much. So like, you know, getting rid of that, you know, there's like certain movements that you really need to be careful of, like slow incline bench press. Great for beginners, not good for bodybuilders because you're just asking to tear your pec. You know, there's so many different movements that you got to avoid just because of the potential for injury. And sometimes you just got to hit it just right. You know, Dorian probably just stretched his tricep too much or something and just popped it, and that was it. You know, his Olympic career is over pretty much. Those things happen. But that's Dorian for you. I mean, there's not a ton to talk about with him just because it's like his bodybuilding and that's pretty much it after that. I mean, you know, there's all those different businesses and stuff that he got into and kind of
that all failed.
Got out of. Yeah, a lot of them failed, and a lot of them he didn't want to like be involved with anymore, stuff like that. But yeah, everything else besides that, he's just been a big advocate for drug usage as far as like cannabis, ayahuasca, stuff like that. And then just like living a very hippie, like peaceful life in Spain, which I don't blame him. Spain is beautiful. It's the only place Anthony Bourdain was like, if I could live anywhere in the world, it'd be Barcelona. It's the only place during Parts Unknown, which is a great show. But Parts Unknown, he was in Barcelona, and the guy he was spending that week with or whatever, he said to him that he envied his life. He's like, this is a beautiful life to live. Yeah. It's the only place he ever said that. Everywhere else, he never said that. But so I don't blame him for living in Spain. But yeah, there you go.
Well, Dorian. Great review, and we'll be bringing another one eventually.
Yes, a couple weeks. We're going to try to do one of the influencer reviews every other week because you guys like it. So we'll come up with another good one in a couple weeks. And we will see you guys then, next week at least, for something else.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys.